Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I guess you already know I'm PPE and this is the Peso Pro episodes. Today we have Money Talks and I'm very excited to have two good friends, Asher and Ali, join us in the channel today. Today we're going to talk about something that's always being asked of me, but I'm probably not the best person to ask, so I brought friends over. Typically, I'm asked, how do you balance na may full-time job ka and you also do a side hustle or a side business that you're very passionate about? Is there even a way to do that? And so I thought of bringing these two into the channel to share their experiences. And Asher, Ali, thank you very much for joining me in this session.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Miss you.
Yes, oo nga, ang tagal na natin hindi nagkita. Ayun, so this is gonna be maybe a quick session lang. We're gonna just talk about your experiences. But maybe let me start with this, right? So you guys are both having full-time corporate jobs in finance and sales. And you also are the co-founders or the co-owners of Shock Shack, right? Food business that you started, I think, just a few years back, right? And obviously, looking at you two, you are both Chinese, right? And you know that merong stereotypes for Chinese being very into business. So maybe, obviously, right, I'm not even gonna ask if you are Chinese. But can you share if that has brought you into entrepreneurship, or how did you find yourselves in entrepreneurship?
So I guess like you're right. I guess being Chinese, there is that stereotype. But maybe I just want to put that out first as a first clarification that anyone can be a great entrepreneur, right? So I guess it's just that from a Chinese background, one of the stereotypes that even applies to me, funnily, it would be that my parents would family business below our house. You know, that typical setup
Yes.
for Chinese. Part of all stereotypes experience, part of my childhood growing up is that even during high school or college days, my parents would what we call the kotiam, right? Kotiam life, which means to take care of the store or just to man the store type of thing, right? So even during weekends, it would be
Summer break.
correct. So, or
You're being
summer
asked
breaks,
talaga.
instead of being able to enjoy going out to the beach with friends or enjoying weekends with friends or doing some recreational activities, it would be to, hey, why don't you just help us man the store, help us learn already the business so that you can eventually take over someday. That's sort of the mindset that they have. So I think that would have been one of the influences to it. But actually, contrary to that, with what you mentioned right now, I'm actually in corporate, right? So I would say that it had its pros and cons. From a pro standpoint, it opened me up to what it looks like to be an entrepreneur or to have your own business. But on the flip side, it really sort of made me like, I want my own life. I don't want to my weekends,
Copy.
my summer breaks, always in the store type of thing. So parang
He had an excuse.
yeah. So I wanted something of my own. Then I guess that's what led me to try my best to excel in college. Join these competitions and eventually land a corporate job to just try to do my own thing first. And I guess not common or not the usual thing for Chinese families wherein young children would be pulled in already to the business, right?
Yes.
I would say I'm blessed to also have parents that are also supportive to just let me do what I want first. But they're always just it's soft nudging here and there, like when are you trying? When will you come back? Type of thing. But for now, they're just really supportive for me to excel with what I want to do on my own. How about you?
But despite that, I think he never lost the business or entrepreneurship side in him because he has always been in Portugal, diba? And when I met Asher, personally, because for me, I grew up in a family of professionals. So my dad is an architect, my sister is an interior designer. I have cousins who are all architects. So, and me, I wasn't blessed with being artistic, so I didn't go for that route. So I've always thought that corporate is the way for me.
Mm.
Finance side. So I like numbers, I like finance. When I met Asher, that's when I parang realized na, oh, the side business or having that corksicle on the side is actually a good thing to practice further your skills on top of doing corporate. So that actually is the reason why we complemented each other and started with Shock Shack PH. Because I also realized na maybe I also want to start that. I got inspired kay Asher to simply say it.
Nice. And I think may two sides pala of the story, right? Na one is like the stereotype, Asher, I think, right? Na parang
Yeah.
you really use your summer breaks, you man the
You
store,
know.
you prepare, hindi
Correct.
naman pala. Ganon. Ano parang, but for Ali, hindi pala, right? Like, so you don't have
Yeah.
that background and you sort of found your way into business. But when you were thinking about Shock Shack, for example, when you were, because obviously I don't think na parang, oh, gusto lang natin magka-business, ito na agad, right?
Yeah.
What were you doing when you were young? Maybe for Asher, right? Aside from the family business, were you the type na who will try doing stuff na mga maliliit na mga side hustles? And how did that prepare you for bigger things like in Corksicle or in Shocksha?
Yeah, maybe I think it's linked to one of the stereotypes then na parang they would say stingy rin ang Chinese.
Mm.
Pero for me, instead of stingy, I would say it's more really teaching us the value of money. So I would say like even in before, maybe one of my first businesses as a kid was to do well in my tests because that is where I can earn money from my
My
mom.
price.
You know, yeah.
Nag-2x yung sweldo pag
Ayan.
honor.
Ayan.
Ah.
Ayan, mga ganyan siguro. Pero like because of those like rewards, you know, funny thing is even me and my brother nung time namin nauso yung PS, right? PlayStation. So we actually like asking me this question, I remember that before we would even rent out our games, you know, the discs, the CDs.
Yes.
We would rent it out and then get also that rental income from that. And then actually, yeah,
Buy
we
more
also did
games.
that as a kid before, yeah. And then I guess linked to that would still be what we wanted out of it, right? So my brother and I did that because we also wanted to earn and get to buy those kids zone books. Yeah, and so yan yung collection namin. And I guess that's also one of the first business that I got myself with.
Got it.
Fun.
And interesting yung mga ganyang stories because I personally, so I'm like semi-Chinese, so probably not as ganun ka-exposed. But I think I like what you said, right? And I think also to people listening or who are thinking about starting businesses, I think yung common kasi na stigma is you have to sort of plan everything really, really well at the start and then you have everything figured out before you launch. And in reality, like you probably don't know everything, right? So you probably have a minimum viable product na nagagawin mo and then you iterate as you go. So I can recall, nung bata ako, nagbenta ako mga yema, ganyan, as probably your version of the renting out PlayStation games, right? But I guess, sometimes when we say that, right, when you start small and you develop those parang skills, that helps eventually. But I think Ali, to the other side naman of the equation, right? Because you grew up in a family where it's all professional. So ito yung type of people who really have jobs, who bring in a steady source of income, right? Like, alam mo kung kailan yung payday, wala kang takot na mataas ba sales or mahina ba sales next month, right? You don't have that variability. And so that landed you maybe in the corporate path. But now that you're venturing out into the world of business, how has your corporate job or has it helped you in this new capacity as a businesswoman, basically?
I realized that back then kasi I used to think that I need to know everything so that I can be successful at something. But when we started with Shock Shack, Asher really pushed me that you won't know anything, you just have to do it. So that's something that I was also able to apply in PNG or in the corporate world. You going into new roles, you tend to be scared that maybe I'll not be successful in that new role that I'll be in. But because of the Shock Shack experience, I think that helped. Or I don't think, I believe it really helped, pushed me for further and made me realize na you can really try new things and you'd realize that you'd even be good at it pala.
Mm.
In Shock Shack, our split is actually I was more doing the marketing stuff, and that I've always known that I'm a very finance girl. As in, no marketing experience. Not that I'm saying that the Shock Shack marketing is good, but I am happy with how it's going right
Yeah.
now. Everyone's happy and surprised with the shockingly good. It's something that we just really thought of, surprisingly. And it's something na sustainable. Like ever since the start, that has always been our peg, that has
Mm.
always been our mantra. Like, it should be shockingly good. Then yun na yung naging branding namin all throughout. So I think that helps so much.
Yeah.
Very interesting because
Mhm.
now you're telling me, actually, I was more in the angle of from your corporate job, may dinala ka from the business. But actually, you're saying na yung
Different,
mga,
yeah.
the other way around, right? The
Mm-mm.
experience of not knowing much, trying it out, and then reapplying that to your job. And I think that's a good point, and especially for young ones, because I think I'm old.
Mm-mm.
But for like, especially for those new to a job, right? If you're a fresh grad, for example, na
Yeah.
wala ka naman talagang alam, right? You really, I mean, you think you know something, but you really probably don't. And it's okay, right? You can learn on the job. Now, going back to Shock
Correct.
Shack lang, because I'm very interested in the backstory of this, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure
obviously,
we're
I
there.
know na parang, oh, sige, baka dahil it's like Chinese food, so very, nasa Singapore pa kasi ako, so lagi ko naririnig yung shock na term. So,
Yeah.
how
Tama.
did you come about the whole concept? Like when you were thinking na, okay, mag-try tayo mag-business, was it
Yeah.
automatic? How did you get there, right? What was the story behind?
You know, it's good that you started with like saying na you don't need to know everything. That's really the truth, right? You don't know if you don't know what you don't know.
Mm.
So you don't have to have everything perfectly planned out already before you start the business. The other extreme also is like the school of thought of I need to be very passionate about it. You know, I need to be I really need to feel that I want this before I go get into it type of thing. So I don't also encourage that it has to be that strong of a feeling of a passion before you do it. But maybe what I want to sort of balance in that aspect and maybe linking it to Shock Shack is it's good and it would be very helpful if you do a business that at least something you like, something you know about, right? And maybe just to link it to Shock Shack, like Ali and I, being Chinese, we also love Chinese food,
Shoma is my favorite.
right? And
Personal
correct,
favorite.
personal favorite food. So it definitely helped a lot because we know that what we're selling is also our something that is good. Because, like, for example, shomai as our favorite, we would know if it's a bad shomai or a good shomai, right?
Got it.
Even if we're not necessarily like culinary experts, but just because we love it, then that really helped a lot in creating a product that we're sure would be successful. Versus not knowing anything at all, then you would have to pour in more effort into research, into trying to overthink it, which I think where people do get stuck, right, at some point. So maybe just want to put that balance of don't make it perfect, but at least have something that you like or you know about
You can
as a
start
starting
with.
point. As a starting point, right? So maybe just to go back to that question, then in terms of Shock Shack, it really started during this pandemic. So when we were all locked down at home, it then eventually became a norm of doing online shopping, and then being couple, it's hard because you automatically get forced LDR. You know,
I live far from Asher,
yeah.
so
Apart from being far away, we can't necessarily just visit each other because we can't go out of our
Lockdown.
homes, right? So the way we show love to each other is by sending food. Yeah. So because we sent food to each other, and again, shomai being our favorite, that's really where the inspiration came from. Like, hey, it's not just us. A lot of people would be sending over food to each other just because it's the best way to send over love today. You can't send over yourself, send over food that you both can enjoy and share, right? So that's where Shock Shack came about. We wanted to start up a business. At least that's our favorite, and we know that many out there also love the Chinese favorites, right? So we started with the Chinese bestsellers and then created that business to hopefully also enable others to just send love to their loved ones. And that's why we have like a witty line also in our packaging, especially with Shomai. So it's Shomai love to you, right? So by sending over Shomai, I'll show my love to you, type of thing. And that's where we continued to evolve from. So that's where we started.
Super nice. I'm so sad hindi ko pa na-try yan kasi I'm stuck here. But definitely, pag nakauwi, I will order. Yes, but sobrang cool. So you're saying actually, Asher, I'm picking up a lot of points from what you said, right? But I think just to tie it, I like what you said na it can be something you're really passionate about, and that's good, right? If you find that. But it doesn't also have to be like the one thing you're super, super passionate. Like, parang siguro mga Elon Musk levels, right? Hindi naman ganun, right? It can be something that you just enjoyed. The second thing that I think you alluded to was you just found something that you wanted to do and you felt like other people also wanted to do, right? Especially in today's time. So, ang pinaka-normal nating naririnig na advice is in businesses, you have to solve a problem, di ba? And sometimes the problem can be as simple as, where do I find good siomai these days because I cannot go out, right? So I think it doesn't have to be, changing the world, bringing people to Mars kind of thing. It can be a simple idea because I think tama yung sinabi mo na in the planning phase, people tend to get paralyzed, right? Because ang dami mong iisipin. So I think that's an awesome example of just really figuring out what mattered to you probably will matter to other human beings as well, right? So I think very, very good. Now, in terms of the practical, tangible na parts of business planning, because I know, syempre, okay, na-figure out mo na you want to show your love or via the siomai delivery. But probably when you're really, really starting out, right? What would be maybe top 3 tips for people who want to start out? So let's say they found their siomai moment. Let's say I found, okay, ito yung gusto kong ibenta or this is the service I want to provide. What would probably be like top 3 tips for those who really want to start? Ano yung una nilang iisipin?
Okay. Maybe I'll start first with how you set up a business, right? And knowing that the question is more balancing corporate and business, your personal business. I'll start it off with, so at least okay na tayo, align tayo na hindi kailangan sobrang perfect yung idea, pero gusto ko to and I'm familiar with it. I know what's good, what's not. So I want to start with this product, right? Now that you have it, the first tip that, or one of the important parts that I learned from doing business, which I think also came from learning because I had Corksicle prior to Shock Shack, which is something I did learn from building Corksicle here in the Philippines, is you need to have a team that you trust, right? So the usual downfall of starting entrepreneurs would be to have that mindset of I need to be all in, do everything myself.
And we started that way.
Correct.
We started that way talaga na I have to manage everything. I have to reply to all customers. It has to be me. Because if it's someone else, that someone else might not reply on time.
Or might destroy your baby.
Yeah, so we started that way. But
Correct.
we realized that when you really start to delegate, just build the whole principle, just build that handbook. And if you are able to build that handbook well, you can actually delegate the work and you might actually be more productive pa.
Correct. So maybe that concept is have that mindset of scaling up.
Yeah.
And you cannot scale up with just yourself.
Ikaw lang.
Right? Yeah. And so I guess that's where we started. Like maybe when you go in to start your business, try to think of being a team of 3 or being a team of 5. Why I say 3 or 5 is there's always that odd person to be that tiebreaker. If you're just 2, if you're just 4, it's easy to get again in that paralysis moment of 2-2, it's a tie. So how do we proceed from here? But if you're 3, there's always that tiebreaker. Whoever gets 2 points, 1 point, we proceed with what the decision of 2 points. You know, and from there, it's good to also have that team with that other person. So me and Ali, what you're not seeing here is our third partner would be our operations manager,
Got it.
right? So we also have an operations manager, as what Ali mentioned, like really doing the day-to-day, the operations of our business.
Because obviously we're in corporate, right? So
Correct.
we really have to have that someone trustworthy. We
Correct.
used to start that I only trust Asher. Asher only trusts me.
Correct.
But when we really started that way, building that operations manager role,
Yeah.
that's when we realized that things are getting better, shooting up, so we're getting more visibility from our customers, new customers even. And that's when the whole shockingly good experience already floated up.
Yep.
Nice.
And
Okay.
again, what Ali mentioned, right? Again, with the mindset of being able to scale up, once you do it, start it up, codify it, or what we say, make it into like a guidebook, a toolkit, and then you can just again replicate. And then that's how you also get to scale up, because it's you having that mindset, that mastery, that idea,
that standard that you want to
but
always be instilled.
being able to do it over and over, it can be passed on and it can be delegated. Others can help you continue doing that work. Then you can move on to the next expansion, right?
Got it.
So that's one very important mindset to have. Be ready to have a team. Be ready to trust your team.
Nice. And gusto ko yung practical tip of 3 and 5. I never thought about it
Yes.
that way, na you will actually make decisions, right? That sometimes it's really polarizing. It can be equal. So mas lalo kayong tatagal. I like that you brought it up, Asher and Ali, that when you actually delegated, when you chose to trust, right? Obviously, you qualify, you find the person.
Yeah.
Siyempre na trustworthy, hindi naman parang mag-trust ka lang, right?
Right.
But when you found that person, the business actually became a bit more sustainable, mas nag-grow. Because I think in a lot of cases, when we think about the original question, right, which is how do you balance corporate and a business?
That's
People
actually
tend to
answered.
forget na pwede namang humingi ng tulong, right? Hindi naman kailangan ikaw
Yeah.
lang mag-isa. So I think that's a really, really good point, because sometimes, you're right, baby ko to, hindi ko to pwedeng ibigay sa kung sino man kasi baka malaglag or baka hindi niya alagaan the same way I would take care of my baby, right? Which is, I think, the default. And I also can feel that, because even in, say, looking for guests, right? Hindi ko to i-delegate kasi hindi ko alam kung sino yung papasok sa channel. So I like that you brought up delegation as a strategy, no, to scale up, because the moment you're able to enroll more people into the business, mas madali nga naman talaga, kasi kung kayong dalawa lang, then you're only limited to the hours that you have, and knowing full well how corporate jobs can be demanding, limited yun. So you cannot do as much as you probably can if you have a team. Now, I think question for the both of you. The typical kasi na barrier, aside from it's paralyzing, it's a totally different world. I don't think people really are taught to do business in school, right? All of these things. But the biggest, I think, and parang a limiting factor, right, would be the fear of trying to do both. So, parang lagi ko ito naiisip na in my mind, like, meron akong corporate job that I like. Ay, syempre, aalagaan ko yun. I make sure that I do well there. So, think about it as like an egg, right? Na aalagaan mo na bawal siya mabasag, bawal siyang kung anong mangyari sa kanya. Right? But now, I'm adding one more egg to the equation na syempre, gusto ko rin naman maging okay, right? So, now I'm very scared na ano bang mangyayari if I do both? Can I juggle both? Right? And I think ito yung na-feel ng a lot of people, and it tends to be na, sige, wag na lang natin dagdagan. Parang okay na ako dito sa isa. So it's that fear of getting started. When you were doing it, or maybe asked differently, for people who have that fear, ano ba yung maybe a tip or an advice that you can give that kind of person?
Good question. That's a good question. I guess first important thing is to understand where the fear is coming from. Some actually have the fear of image. You know, like they just don't want people to hear about their business, and then eventually matatanong sila like, oh, what happened, na parang hirap sila to say na parang I didn't do well eh. Like di naging okay yung business eh, right? So that's one fear. The other fear could also be fear of financial risk. Because I need to invest in this business. If it doesn't do well, the hard work I did in corporate went into this and then nawala. Like all of my hard work
Saving.
risk yun, right? So I guess that's one. And maybe the other one is also the risk of maybe I'm doing well in corporate, I'm up for the next promotion or the next recognition. If I spread myself too thinly by starting another business, do I lose that chance? Or do I make myself perform less and then lose that capability to get that promotion or recognition? So I guess it's important to understand first what your personal fear is to really know what to take action on. But maybe I would go into the point of maybe if I go back to having that team, in work also in corporate, at least we work as a team, right? I don't think there's a corporate that is just a one-man thing. And also learning from corporate now, like Ali provided an example of what she learned from entrepreneurship to corporate role niya, diba? I would say naman, I learned a lot from corporate that we also reapply to the business. And that is the concept of creating functions. If it's that fear of capability, like, can I really do this? Would I have the capacity to do this? Then assign yourself a role. That's why it's a team of 3, team of 5. The way to overcome that fear is I also know what I know my strength is, for example, sales. Ali's strength is on finance. Then I don't need to fear what if I don't set up the financial structure of my business well? Because I leave that to Ali as the master of finance. But Ali's fear is how do I make sure it sells? How do I make sure that people would buy our product to make it successful? But she doesn't have to worry about that. Let me take care of it. Right. So I guess that is one way to address that type of fear. Now, if your fear is the fear of financial risk, I would say it also helps to have partners because you also help each other with that risk. As shareholders, right? Each of you would also do your own part to make sure the business would be successful because you're also equally putting in that risk to it. But maybe I just want to add that tip there, going back to my point of scaling up. Start with that, personal risk first. As each of you as partners invest into the company, try to build the right processes, the right foundation for your business. But in the mind of being able to scale up, one important tip or lesson that I've also learned doing business is don't be afraid to get loans. When I say loans or investors, it doesn't have to always be a bank. It can be, your uncle, your parents, or friends that really want to invest in you. Not, you would have those friends, right, that are saying that, hey, I have
big idea.
Some funds set aside. I want to invest in you as someone who's being bullish with doing a business. Leverage on them because as you scale this up, think of that sort of interest. Of course, you have to pay interest if you did get investors or loan from a bank. But just think of it like if you've already set a foundation for your business. If, for example, you're selling 10 pieces because you only have capital to sell 10 pieces, and let's say you earn 1 peso per piece, then you earn 10 pesos. But if I am able to scale it up, let's say 100,000, because I got investors in, I got loans as within the risk factor still in there. Like I'm comfortable to get into this risk, right? But now I'm able to sell 100,000 because I know I've set my foundation strongly, and I know that I would be able to sell this accordingly. Now I earn 100,000 instead of being limited to just being able to sell 10 at a time because of my limited capital, right? So maybe just to recap 2 things. As partners, you share equal risk, but also you put in different strengths into the business. But once you've set that foundation, don't get into that trap again of, as startups, we need to build, and then reinvest. You can also just get investments so you automatically scale up already.
Got it. I think I like yung first point more. I think which is probably the most important on identifying what the risk you're fearful of, di ba? Kasi a lot of cases, madami yun. It's not probably one. It's probably all of the above. Right? So, I think yun kasi yun eh. And if it's all of the above, and you don't have names for them, then mahirap siyang i-face, right? Kasi hindi mo naman pwedeng i-face lahat yun na all of the above din. So I like that when you broke it down, right? Obviously, there are different tools. Like even in financial risk, you can, if you're not yet confident with maybe scaling, you can probably maybe prove the concept first, right? And if it's 10 pieces for 3 months, 6 months, so be it. Basta na-prove mo na yung 10 pieces mo ubos agad, right? So you know that there's really demand. So I think a lot of people don't, or maybe especially if you don't have the business mindset, right? We always tend to see the success as what we see on TV, what gets featured, right? Wala namang nag-feature na para nung simula na minamano-mano pa namin tong paggupit ng mga nilalagay namin sa mga collaterals, right? Wala namang nag-cover nung ganun. But I guess every startup goes through that, right? You don't have custom packaging on day one, right? You probably iterate several times hanggang naging mas maganda siya and whatnot. And I like of the thought of, yes, there are risks, but if you have a team, you're actually able to manage both risks and your strengths and weaknesses then. And now, speaking of teams, maybe, right? I mean, sobrang obvious, you are a couple. Does being a couple in business actually become a strength, or does it also become a source of away? And alam mo yun, parang how do you delineate, oh, this is a business topic, so mag-business partners tayo, mamaya bati tayo. Is that something that gets in the way, or is that something that actually builds the business?
Personally, when I work with Asher from a shock point of view, I don't see him as my partner in life. I see him really as a business partner. Like, I'm ready to talk difficult things with Asher. Not that I'm not ready to talk to you difficult things. We're already engaged, right? But I think that's something that you really have to be ready of, whether you're best friends, your couples, or even if sometimes my dad and the son agribusiness, you have to be ready to talk difficult things and address things as a group, as a team. Because if you're not ready and you think that best friends baka ma-offend or baka your personal lives would be affected, then you'll really never go further. If you don't really cross or go through that journey with your partner, of course, ano na rin siya, function of the trust element na rin, as we have always been mentioning, right? You delegate to someone, you have to make sure you trust that person. If you build the team, you have to make sure that you build that trust among the team, just so you will be able to do and talk such difficult or non-difficult things, right? And go through the whole process.
And maybe just to add to that, I think one good tip or framework that the listeners can also learn or reapply would be the PACE model, as we would call it, right? And earlier we talked about each of our roles, like Ali being marketing, me being sales. And in my own function, I have my own PACE there. So, and actually it surprised me about, again, if you have that clarity, you just be surprised with what the other person can do. So, for example, let's say Ali would have her marketing campaigns or programs in mind. She would be the P there, or the project owner, right? A would be for approver, C would be for contributor, and E for executor, right? So being the function project owner, if she would need some ideas or brainstorming sessions, I'm there as the C or contributor. And I would be able to give her my ideas, my inputs, do I think yes or no type of thing. But at the end of the day, I know she's the project owner and also she's the approver, being the function head. So as long as I give my inputs, she can hear it, but whatever she decides, I respect. Because that's not my A. I'm not the A there. But when it comes to my turn, when she, for example, consults like, okay, do we open up this new channel? Like, do we apply with this partner and start selling our products there? Then I would get her thoughts. And not just because I'm the sales function owner, I get to do everything, right? Again, it's all about the team. So I ask her, hey, what do you think about this? And she gives her inputs actually from a marketing lens type of thing. Like, I think a lot of people shop there. I think it's linked to our branding, type of thing that I might not be strong with, or I might not be actually good with knowing. But as the final A, I still would decide go or no go. And if I say no go, even if she does like it, she would just respect that you're the project owner there, the approver there. Go for it.
I would just bug him for days
Correct.
Yeah.
if he doesn't go for my decision.
But at least there's always clear
Who
responsibility.
decides?
And with that, no more arguments because we're clear. You only want me for my contribution, which would be ideas, inputs, insights. But you make the decision.
Got it. Sobrang cool nito. So, like, I like that. I think two broad key takeaways. Na number one, I like that when you talk Shock Shack, you know you're talking as business partners. Wala to na parang magkatampo ako mamaya kung hindi mo to gagawin. Parang walang ganong emotional blackmail. Like, probably happens sometimes. But you know the roles you play in that conversation, which I think is very important. Ali brought up a good point on parents and kids, right? Kasi may tendency na ako yung magulang, susundin mo ako. But in this case, we're equal business partners. I'm an adult, right? So I think when you get into these, especially maybe businesses with relationships it can be friends also, right? Knowing that in this conversation you are business partners and you can decouple that from your personal relationships, I think is a super difficult but super effective way to manage din. The other one is on just the pace in itself, right? And I think I like na it comes from a position of trust, right? You know that all of you in the team just wants the business to succeed. So if you make decisions, if it's coming from that, then I think you should be okay, diba? I mean, will there be wrong decisions? Obviously, there will be wrong decisions, but at least you are able to work harmoniously and move forward, which is, I think, what you guys have been saying the whole session. So I like it. I think super effective yung the way you guys are communicating, because I think this is probably where I will be if I want to start a business, right? You're giving us a lot of tips on paano ba kayo nag-start, what were some of the considerations, right? And I know we've been talking, hindi ko alam kung na-notice niyo, we've been talking for like half an hour. So time flies. I'm pretty sure you didn't notice, but maybe I want to end on something that maybe a tip, maybe you learned this via experience, or maybe a mentor told you before. If you were to leave our listeners like one final tip for those who want to start a job and balance that with corporate life, right? You have a full-time job. What would that be?
Maybe for me, I'll start with don't expect things to really be 50-50. So just like when you want to have a work-life balance, don't expect it to always be 50% work, 50% life. So the same goes with your commitments, right? You can have commitments with Shock, you can have commitments with your corporate, you can even have commitments with your personal relationships. You don't expect all of these to have equal weights. There will really be days where you would have to focus on one and then bawi on the other. And I think if you don't pressure yourself that you always have to be present in both equally all the time, you'll even be more successful in both. Because you'd know how to prioritize. Like on this week, I need to focus on this. Yeah, it's chem season. I need to focus on chem. If it's peak 11/11, I have to focus on making sure my campaigns are up or getting ready for Shock. Just an example. So for me, really know your priorities when you start to commit on these things, but don't pressure or expect too much that you will always be equally present on all at all times. Because if you start to have that pressure, you might even fail, or it might lead you to more pressures and you overthink things, and then it might not go well.
Yeah. For me, probably it can be this like one line, which is my personal reminder to self as well. Like, you don't need to make the best decision, but you need to make your decision the best it can be. Right? So you don't need to make the best decision, but make your decision the best it can be. So it's just about, as long as you have something to start with, go for it. It may be not the best yet, but as long as you get into it already, the more and more that you improve on it, just have that drive to make it the best already, because you already made that decision.
Nice. Very, very practical stuff. So I like it. I mean, I'm reminded, I probably know this, but sometimes you forget, right? So I like your two final tips. And again, thank you for spending time with us, sharing your stories from like how you ideated Shock Shack, how you're managing through corporate, because I know it's not the simplest thing in the world to do, and still thriving in corporate and also doing really well in business. So I'm really happy and I'm really proud that I know you guys personally. I am so happy seeing like all of these new campaigns. I promise I will try the products when I get back home. And I will reach out to you. But for those who are listening who are probably hungry, talking about siomai, how do people find you for Shock Shack if they want to order?
Yeah, so we're just available on Instagram or on Facebook. So it's Shock Shack PH, and it maybe we can just also help provide that link to the viewers,
Sure.
right? So
Cool. So they'll find you
Shock
on
Shack
social
PH.
media and then they can send you a message. I'll put it right below and people can contact you so that yeah, so the comment down below and in the description box like a true YouTuber. So yes, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I hope everyone you are enlightened with this topic. I've been getting it for the past several months. So hopefully this helps. Asher, Ali, thank you once again. And I can't wait to meet you both again personally in real life, not virtually. So I hope that is soon. Take care and I'll see you again next time.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you once again for joining this edition of Money Talks. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you want to hear more about videos similar to this one, click on these two right here. I'll see you in the next one.